All right, welcome into the Knoll Road, Steelers fans. We know you want the Super Bowl more than anything else, and we can feel the excitement building into 2025. But I'm starting to question if the Pittsburgh Steelers front office wants it enough. And to me, this is starting to look like they are trying to be too careful, looking for a perfect deal when a situation like this does call for blunt force and overpaying in order to open up that championship window, doesn't it? The Steelers wide receiver 2 situation has everybody's attention. They're inquiring about everybody rumored to be available. Even Aaron Rodgers is getting in on the action. So what's next and what do we make of it? Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
Yeah, buddy, welcome in. I'm Gavin Dawson, along with New Bear. The Knoll Road brought to you by BetOnline. Bonus link in the description for up to $250 in bonus bets this season. Fastest payouts guaranteed. Buddy, good day to you. We've talked about this idea of being all in, but also trying not to sacrifice the future, and I think they're being too careful here. There's an opportunity to push this team over the top, but right now I'm feeling like top 3 defense, top half offense, and that's not enough.
If they asked for money in the Jacoby Myers, that is where the premise of this whole thing is just 13 out of 10 no notes insane.
Yeah, it is. Like, he is at an $11 million salary. It is incredible to get that level of production. Like, he's due for somewhere between, what are we thinking, 25 to 30? That's what Spotrac estimates his contract at, a 2-year extension for $60 million. And you're looking for extra money to be thrown in on an $11 million salary. Hopefully the Steelers are just waiting for a buyer's market to emerge, or they know something else, or they're curious about how all these tight ends and DK Metcalf can gel and come together. But right now, my anxiety is high. I've been confident in this front office. I have believed they're operating differently. But if they come this far to just go this far, I think it would be a massive disappointment.
You go in Kim Kardashian again. You can't tell me Tom Brady is not messing around. Tom Brady wants to win now. Pete Carroll wants to win now. Right? They drafted Genty. They've got this nice, they just signed Coop. They've got this nice crop. They got the 2 tight ends, Mayer and Bowers. The Raiders aren't just going to do it just to do it. It's not a fire sale situation coming out of Vegas, right? Like, they believe Jacoby Myers is a potentially a key contributor to this team. So when you said 2 for 60, the deal that was really viral yesterday was 3 for 60, and then either what player and what pick. Because they were talking about, could you push it to 20? Could you get him to sign for $20 million per at guaranteed, a hefty guarantee, and get the AAV down? And then who are you giving up? Calvin Austin, a 2, a 3, a 4. Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, that's the reality of this situation. Like, it's going to cost you something to solidify a Super Bowl run.
It will, and I think there are reasonable explanations for why the Raiders wouldn't have traded you or the Commanders wouldn't have traded you McLaurin, and why the Raiders don't want to trade you Myers. Like, you just imagined, they're going for it. They don't have other great ideas or great options at wide receiver. So if they just want to hodl Jacoby Myers, I get it. And it gets cloudy with the reporting and the explanation for why one team or another wouldn't do it. But I mean, we're a week and a half from kickoff now, and it's obvious that this team really feels like wide receiver needs an upgrade, and they're still been in action. So, I imagine what they got to be thinking right now is all of these teams in the NFL think that, hey, we could go be a wild card team this year. Right. What happens to those dreams when a handful of them are winless or 1-2 win teams as we're sitting in the middle of October? And if that's the plan, I get it. But if that's not the plan, then you need to pick one of these wide receiver 2s and make your move and say, we're willing to overpay in order to give ourselves a great chance to take this team on a magic carpet ride.
And when I heard that they may have, right, because it's neither confirm nor deny type of situation, but that that they may have asked for money for the Raiders to send money with the player, then I started hearing the Tomlinism, we're still squirreling away those nuts, right? Like what are you're talking about trying to be too perfect, right? And the 12 picks that you have next year allow you to have versatility in the draft. The roster that you've built this year, it doesn't just allow you to win now. The only move is to try to win now.
Yeah. And that's what the Eagles understood last year. And that's what I think the best front offices are doing. Pick a year. It makes sense with an older Aaron Rodgers. This has to be your year. An older TJ Watt, a Cam Hayward coming off an all-pro year, this loaded defense. Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay are in their mid-30s. Like, what more signs do you need to understand that this should be your absolute go-for-it year? Like the Eagles did last year, and now they've spent the offseason having to signal to their fan base and to their media, look, we went all in a massive way. We sold 10% of our team to create the liquidity to buy up these player contracts. But now we got to let Slay go and CJ Gardner-Johnson go and Milton Williams go and Josh Sweat go and Mekhi Becton, who turned into one of the best guards in the NFL. Like, we had to let all these guys go. And now we're hoping depth can hold up the standard. This isn't a time for the Steelers after this much of a playoff drought to be thinking, we got to think long-term about this. This is a go for it and then rebuild league unless you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid.
So I think everyone, national media, the consensus, the thought is that Steelers Nation, that Pittsburgh fan is just good with 9-8 and a first round. Like that they're just good with 18 straight non-losing seasons, that they're just good being in the mix. And look at just our comments. We're just a little budding podcast. Look at the people in our little corner of the world talking about resonating with conversation like this. Because this isn't, okay, you can make excuses if you say, we didn't have a real plan after Ben, or the plan was Pickett and he's a bust. And now you're stuck. And you go through the machinations of the past couple years and you go, well, I mean, you're watching Hard Knocks, and I mean, they're talking about how much Mitchell Trubisky is this perfect athlete. Because you go, Russell Wilson, he's won a Super Bowl. Justin Fields, he's going to redshirt and learn how to be the future of the franchise. Every year, resetting and doing this this is not that. It's not that, because 8 is great. And even if he doesn't have as much greatness left in the tank, he's still a Hall of Fame signal caller. He's the best answer you've had to the post-Ben plan that did not exist.
But you got to mitigate what is likely still an average or slightly above average offensive line. You got to figure out a way. Is it a difference-making star running back that makes lines right? Is it a combination of wide receivers and tight ends that gives Aaron Rodgers so many options that, damn it, one of them is going to win one-on-one every play, and Aaron Rodgers is going to find the guy? Like, what are you doing? You're not giving Aaron Rodgers right now elite protection. Okay, let's talk about 41 years old. He doesn't have elite protection. He does not have an elite running back. He does not have an elite running game. He does not have an elite running scheme. Like, what is the advantage you're giving him other than the ability to go 13 personnel and trick defenses into thinking you're going to run all the time and then play action? I guess power football combined with a DK Metcalf deep threat. Like, that's fun 3D chess football type of stuff. If you want to give Rodgers and Smith credit for being able to drop and execute something like that, I get it. But that's trying to be elite with what I think is average offensive personnel around Aaron Rodgers right now. And I'm waiting for the surge.
Yeah, I mean, I texted you yesterday. I'm on the grease board drawing unbalanced stuff out of 13 with basically Mount Washington as an eligible left tackle. And there's a lot of fun to be had in that world, whether you're a super nerd like me on the grease board, or you're just imagining, wondering, what this team, what this personnel, where the explosivity comes from, what it looks like, and then how it gets done on the field. And I'm in the comments going back and forth with our folks who are listening and giving us their opinion and their takes, saying basically this: McLaurin, you swing for the fences. He's that level of good, right?
Yeah.
Myers, I'll buy your pause. If you don't want to say he's good enough, I'll meet you right there. I also don't then want to hear about every dude that gets cut by every other team. I don't care where they were drafted. I don't care what their NFL combine score is. And honestly, I don't really care what they've done 3, 4, 5 years ago, except for Romeo Doubs, because he's in his age 25 season. And if we're going to talk about ourselves to the conversation, that's the only one that I really want to listen to because of age, because of production, even with some injury history and a crowded wide receiver room since he's left Green Bay. And that's an interesting thing to talk about. You're either going to pay for somebody with money, you're going to pay for them with picks, or you're going to overpay for someone like McLaurin. Like, those are the levels of the conversation.
Yeah, and if you don't want to do it with money, I would say look at your future first-round picks and find the first all-pro wide receiver that becomes available and say, this is really all in. Guys, watch this, because on the other side of a Super Bowl is a lot of grace that the fan base is going to give you. And if you can't stomach the idea of going a year without a first-round pick, after a Super Bowl, if you decide Aaron Rodgers is retiring, we're rebuilding, you're welcome for the Super Bowl that we managed to pull out of thin air late in Aaron Rodgers' career. Now we're going to trade some of our recent acquisitions to restock our draft pick pile into the future. Like, there's ways to be fluid in and out of picks and players. And, when you are good, you trade your picks for players. When you are bad, you trade your players for picks. And if you are doing it that way, you can ride a very strong yo-yo. Like, trying to have 500 season actually is the enemy.
I was going through it yesterday where, everyone was so high on MVS. And yes, Scantling has led the NFL in yards per reception. And yes, he's another one of those big, rangy, super fast guys, even as he enters age 31 season. Yeah. But I'm going back through this and looking at, so he had 4 years with all-pro MVP Aaron Rodgers, back-to-back MVP all-pro one. He had 64 games, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. And you're talking about 52, 47, 51, 48% catch percentage. And now he's how many years older? With how much more tread on the tires? Where he's been cut by how many other teams? And we're acting like this dude is going to come in and fix everything. On the other side of the Jacoby Myers,
I wanted to ask you about that. Like, what's the reaction been? I didn't want them to go get Marquez Valdes-Scantling. I was happy he went to the 49ers. I just think he's a big, fast guy, doesn't run great routes, doesn't have great hands, doesn't have much yak ability. He's just like a track athlete that managed to have enough football awareness to play the game at a pro level to me.
Right, and look at it, 8 games played, 14 games played in the last couple. He's been on. This would be his 3rd team in 3 years. What are we signing up for? Because
that's not what we want. That's not a big improvement.
But this is also where I'm pushing it. I didn't even want to see Amari Cooper, because I don't know how much he has left, especially at the type of money they were talking about with those guys. If you're looking at this roster and you're saying we like what we have, why is Aaron Rodgers personally calling old teammates?
Yeah, and do you trust him to help find you good players? Like, is this what you want? It's obviously a clear sign that the Steelers are very serious about this, having conversations. Hey, you call this guy, we call that guy. And I don't know if Aaron Rodgers went rogue on this or if the reporter just took an opportunity to report some information that Aaron Rodgers told him to sort of try to blow up his account. Like, hey, look at me. Look what Aaron Rodgers said in an informal off-the-record conversation. I don't know the origination of this report. Anytime I hear SI Insider, it used to be the most credible thing you could say, and now oftentimes it's just a blogger or some dude. I guess this is Bill Huber of Sports Illustrated. Rodgers called on Monday, one day before roster cuts. He asked about the status of Romeo Doubs. Huber said in his article, exactly 2 months after Tuesday's roster cuts, the Packers will visit the Steelers on October 28th. I don't know what to make of this report. I just know generally it does make me a little bit nervous. I don't want Aaron Rodgers trying to problem solve this. Just be a quarterback. He gets into trouble when he wants to be the coach or the GM too. You don't need this from him or LeBron, do you?
Not even once, and he's already done it twice. The third time is not going to be a charm. He's proven that he's not that kind of guy.
No,
I'm looking at this. There's one more door to walk through, and it's just throwing down the gauntlet and saying Roman Wilson is wide receiver 2. I've been using hashtag Roman Wilson season. I've got a Michigan and a signed Steelers color rush. I was trying to think of which type it was in the eBay cart. I'm waiting to get into a bidding war with Carnival Kid 32 as soon as they just announce that news that we're either not going and getting anybody or we believe in this. Either way, you want to color that conversation. I'll meet you in the middle a little bit. You still got to light a fire under him because he's still got to go out and do it. But where you drafted him based on what he did for that Michigan team and his traits and his slipperiness, a touchdown every 4 catches coming out, the speed, the route running ability, the hands, either say he's him or make a decision on one of these guys and move it forward. Like sitting here letting this spin with $20 million in room to play with when you're making decisions on punters over $1 million, when you're potentially letting Chuck Clark get scooped and Miles Killebrew is your backup in the safety room. Like I
love it when you start talking about Roman Wilson like this, because I know the comments are going to come after you and not me. It just tickles me.
I'm here for it because when you watch him and what he's capable of and what they drafted him to be, right? And look, I'm not sitting here saying that tomorrow he's him, but make that decision and then give him all the reps. Make that decision and then put the pressure on him to find out if he is. Because I said this the last time we hopped in here. If you go get a Kendrick Bourne, a Marquez Valdez-Scantling, if you go get one of these guys and you bring him in and you push Roman Wilson down, you kick the can on that development, then we're having this same conversation next year.
Well, you got some pretty good defenses out of the gates. The Jets aren't anything to overlook. Obviously the Seahawks could have a really good defense, so you might get some answers early on, depending on how that offense goes. But my read is that their interest in other wide receivers has them convinced that we don't want to go into season with hope at wide receiver too. There's so many examples of players who can have great training camps and preseasons, and they're like Mr. August for their football team. And sometimes after a couple of seasons, that develops into something. But until a guy has shown he can do it in the regular season, I'm not going to assume that he can.
This is the exact opposite conversation of what Pickens is looking at in Dallas. Like you're in Dallas, you're talking about them throwing the ball 600 times. In Dallas, you're talking about George Pickens becoming the guy you drafted him to be, and he's already shown you some things. It's a matter of maturity, and then what can you do opposite a world-class talent like CeeDee Lamb, right? So if you can just say traits-wise, DK Metcalf can be some reasonable facsimile of whoever your favorite wide receiver one is, and you're playing off that. None of those other teams with those other great wide receivers, not even Hawkinson in Minnesota, not even certainly not what's going on in Cincinnati, but anybody else that you would put Ferguson in Dallas, none of those guys, none of those teams have tight end rooms like we do in Pittsburgh. So that classes up, that pluses up DK in some ways. You're playing off of seam stretching. You're playing off of scheme. You open. You're playing off of all these other elements that are going to give you more opportunities to succeed. This is actually the perfect petri dish to find out what Roman Wilson is.
Okay. I also wanted to bring up, what Jonnu Smith is, and our buddy Chris Halleck, who we got to get on the show here sometime in the next week to talk about week 1 and all these storylines. Incredible insider resource for us here on the Knoll Road. And he's looking at Jonnu, and Smith said after practice yesterday, it's the guys that at the end of the day, it's a collective. When I say the guys, I'm talking about all 11. The coaches can draw everything up and put us in the best position, but we've got to go out there and execute. Halleck's point is it's not talked about enough, but Smith's a much needed weapon in an offense that is in need of firepower. How much wide receiver 2 stuff do you think that Jonnu Smith can effectively give the Steelers here this season?
My big question about the whole Jonnu Smith thing, and I get when you look at 88 catches and a guy who won a lot of fantasy leagues off the waiver wire last year in Miami. The guy's got 300 catches in his career. Do the math. Last year wasn't just a career year. Last year was wildly, double almost his best season. And you go back over time, people talk about his connection with Artie Smith. Go back to his years in Tennessee. His best year in Tennessee was 40 catches, 450 yards. He did score 8 touchdowns, but 10.9 a catch that year. He's never even hit 13 yards a catch. Last year, for all the 88 catches, 880 yards. I just don't understand why everyone thinks that he is going to come in and be some sort of savior. He's so much of a next level guy that you can just pass on an opportunity to improve your team with all these other guys that we're talking about.
Yeah. I think the best offenses have so many weapons, so many options that it almost feels unfair to the defense. Like you just don't have enough dudes to match up. And if you really wanted to go all in and win the Super Bowl, that is the idea. It's not like, well, we don't have to worry about this starting position because we're good at this starting position. I think the best teams, usually have quality across the lines going into the season. And then, whatever weaknesses they have, if they want to win the Super Bowl, they're very aggressive getting that situation solved. Okay, a couple of other storylines here just to clean up the roster and the cut downs and then that whole game of musical chairs they play. Chuck Clark made it back, and I think that's huge. I did have concerns with some of the plays. I thought he was exposed in coverage, but you're going to need this guy against the Ravens, aren't you? Like, he is a demon coming downhill. I love Chuck Clark in the box. I think he's got versatility. I don't know if I want him on the field against great wide receivers and, complicated offensive passing schemes. I do think he'll get lost and give up chunk plays in the back end.
Just real quick to put a bow on Jonnu Smith, he had terrible quarterback play, and I'm not trying to say Jonnu Smith is garbage and he can't do anything. And like before you come after me on Jonnu Smith, he's got a lot to give. I'm just saying let's not overreact on that, dude. To answer your question specifically about Chuck Clark, you know what I'm really excited to see is what this safety room does week to week, because Jalen Ramsey's already out there talking about covering, and Tomlin has basically said he's going to be on Jamar. He's going to see Jamar Chase twice, and so when you play Cincinnati, their coverage scheme should look different than when they play Baltimore, because you don't think about you don't think about Bateman and Flowers and company the same way that you think about Chase and Higgins and company. So if Tomlin is telling the truth, and we're not just going to get this vanilla center field, deep guy where we're playing bland coverages because we don't trust our corners because we have Slay, Ramsey, and Porter, then week to week, scheme to scheme, look to look, other guys, other combinations of dudes coming at you, you should be able to say, hey, Chuck Clark, this week, you're Troy Polamalu. Go get in the box and ruin people's days. And then, hey, this week, maybe Ramsey is playing center field. And then the other team doesn't know what to expect. And then when you get into those matchups and the game starts changing and breaking and you get a run out and you get somebody deep over the top, or Caleb Johnson shows you, or Gainwell steps up, and one of these guys kind of takes that running back room by storm, then you get out in front and you let TJ and company go hunt. And from week to week, this safety room should be completely different than we've seen for years.
Okay, final story here on the Knoll Road. The decision to put Will Howard on IR was, in fact, accurate. That report from a couple of weeks ago, then it looked like, well, no, he's not going to be IR, but he ended up being back on there. Cavalli and others strongly disagreeing with it, calling it a lost season. What I think happens here is players are coming out of college. They're getting ready for the draft. Radio guys, bloggers, Twitter influencers, they have strong opinions on guys, right? And then they get drafted and there's some excitement. I just trust the team. I don't think the team would intentionally be putting this guy and burying him, and preventing him from maybe being Aaron Rodgers' replacement in 2026. They know the kid has a lot to learn, and there's a lot to like about him, but there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, look at this guy's mechanics, look at his footwork, look at his, lack of poise. He made a lot of big plays. So I don't want to say like the moment was too big for him, like the run that he made, the championship throw that he made, like the cojones, the church bells hanging from Will Howard are a sight to behold. I'm sure he's got to carry him around with a wheelbarrow, but watching him play in college, I was like, this guy's got no shot of the NFL until he gets a lot of stuff figured out. So I'm glad that he's taken the year to learn, would be my take.
I look at what they're doing with Jalen Milroe, or they're planning to do with Jalen Milroe up in Seattle, where you have a Lamar Jackson skill set type of quarterback, and you say, we're going to build a package for this guy. And he's shown that he can do all the things. He just also, like you said, is a guy who needs to learn a ton. And when you look at his college tape and you see these great big plays, and you also see a ton of flaws. What you can do in Seattle is goal line, short yardage. What you can do in Seattle is develop a scheme where you get him those game day reps so he gets used to the speed and he can use his athleticism. You put him in position to make plays, feel good about himself going into the offseason, and then ultimately find out at some point if he can go battle Sam Darnold. This isn't that, because you're not going to bring Will Howard in and ask him to run speed option. You're not going to bring him in and turn the offense into, the Greg Roman stuff, the Lamar Jackson stuff, or what they're going to do, what you see with Ravens West out in San Diego, even though they don't ask Justin Herbert to run. Like, this is a completely different situation for the kid. And oh, by the way, he can still go work off to the side. He can work after practice. He can do all this other stuff and get in the film room, and he can go work with any other additional coach. You see what whether it's Hess or House, whether you're talking about all these different throwing coaches, the mechanics, the 3D, like all these elements that you're talking about, there are solutions out there beyond the team. And the onus becomes to go on to the player to say that what else are you going to do for yourself beyond what the team might do for you?
Well said, New Bear. We are in our final approach to week 1 here on the Knoll Road. Stay tuned for game previews and the latest breaking news. Hopefully we get some wide receiver 2 news here before week 1, but I don't think so. My prediction would be this will be solved once we get into the season and the trade deadline. I think they're waiting for a buyer's market to emerge. Right now, there's just not enough supply on that market, too much demand. Please subscribe. We need 1,000 subs in order to go live on game day. Okay, so we got 9 days. We need about 400 more subs. Seriously, a lot of people are watching and not subbing, and I get it, but I just wanted to see if we could, get you to maybe hit that right now. I'll buy you a beer at the draft party if you do. How about that? If you sub, I'll buy you a beer draft party. For New Bear, I'm Dawson, and until next time, we'll see you on the Knoll Road.